feeling refreshed and alive? Looks like we're still in the darkness. So today we're gonna be transcending over to the topic of fasting because this week, if you're Jewish, then you already know that there is our holiday called Yom Kippur, which revolves around fasting. So I figured to stay along the topic of fasting, today we're going to begin by talking about intermittent fasting. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Christy. Good morning, Rick. I see that there's somebody else in the house. Can't see who it is though. Good morning, Kobe. How's it going, you guys? Happy Monday. So we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. Comment yes if you've ever thought about trying intermittent fasting or whether you've actually tried it. I've been getting a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks about intermittent fasting. As you guys probably heard at least once or twice, it's a very hot topic in the nutrition world nowadays. Pinkies up. Good morning. So comment yes if you've ever done intermittent fasting, attempt it. Okay, Kobe tried it. Teresa does it on occasion. Christy, yes. Great. And you guys, before, as I'm going to start talking about it, if you can just type, what was your experience with it? Kobe, that's a great response. And the reason why I'm saying it's a great response, it's not because intermittent fasting is good or bad. It's just not for everyone. So whenever somebody asks me, what are your thoughts about intermittent fasting? The first thing that I always say is intermittent fasting works, but it's not for everybody. And the reason is because when you're on intermittent fasting, you do have a lot of limits with regards for how many hours within the day you can actually eat. Now, for some people, based off of schedules, it works. For some people, it doesn't. For some people, based off of their emotional attachment to food, it works. For some people, it doesn't. What I find is that with most women, because we have this kind of an emotional attachment to food, once we deprive ourselves from food for a longer period of time, then unless you've mastered some certain foundational habits, what you're going to notice is that your body and like your soul is gonna feel deprived of it, and then you'll want to self-sabotage yourself. So first thing, if you know that you're that kind of person where if you deprive yourself of food for a certain amount of time, for longer than 12 hours, would you want to sabotage yourself later because you'll be feeling hungry? Then if so, then rule number one, right now, intermittent fasting is not for you. Could it be later? Potentially, but you're going to have to get over the hump of, being controlled by food like that. Now, if you know that you have full control over your food, and if you limit your food in one way, shape, or form, whether it's quantity, timing, then intermittent fasting for sure might be the right thing for you. Now, moving on to the next thing, let's talk about the benefits of intermittent fasting. Like, scientifically, is it actually good for you? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, Ayurveda, which is Far Eastern form of medicine that came from India, basically started thousands of years ago, preaches fasting. Now it just has some kind of fancy name, and the whole, Western society wants to jump on it. But, Indians have been doing it for literally thousands of years. Check this out. The digestion process in our body actually takes a lot of energy. When you're digesting, literally 25% of your body's energy goes towards digestion. Is it any wonder why after you eat a meal, most of the time you feel tired? Now, feeling tired after a meal also has a big correlation on the kind of food that you ate. Usually, highly processed carbs or any form of meat ingestion leads to you feeling a lot tired because number one, that means that insulin levels spike up, which makes you tired. And number two, if you have to digest meat, it's obviously going to take a lot more energy than, just breaking down, let's say, an avocado or a vegetable, that sort of thing. That's why a lot of times, like, if you ever eat a burger or a steak, hands up, anybody who likes steak or burgers, you might feel heavy afterwards. And that feeling is absolutely true. You feel that way because it literally takes a lot more energy to digest the meat. Now, meat is great for you, right? And the topic is not about meat today. It's about intermittent fasting, but back to the concept of, digestion is very energy, what's the word? It requires a lot of energy. Okay, I'm drawing a blank on whatever word I'm trying to figure out here. But because it takes a lot of energy out of your body, intermittent fasting allows you to feel more energized and revived, which is why a lot of people who are actually okay with intermittent fasting, and those are the people who are not controlled by food, okay? Far and very few of us are like that, especially if you're women. Men have a very big advantage when it comes to that. So you want to take that into consideration. Yes, are there health benefits? Absolutely. Now you have to find whether intermittent fasting is just the right thing for you. Now, because digestion is, very energetically expensive, if you eat less times in a day, then it is a no-brainer that you're going to feel a lot more revived and a lot more energized, right? But the question is, can you actually keep up with it? And can you keep up with it feeling okay? All right? So, going into some comments before we're going to talk about some progressions with regards for that. Good morning for anybody who just jumped in. Good morning, Brian, Mark, Alex, Kelly, Alex, Omega, Brittany. Good morning, wherever you are. So Kobe said that she tried it and it's not for her. I love what you said, that it's not for you. It is great, but it is not for everybody. Christy, I notice how frequently I think about food during the day. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, with most women, it might be a struggle because we do have a greater emotional attachment to our food. So now, as Christy says, she thinks about her food more often when she tries to intermittent fast. So when you fast, you're basically giving yourself a guideline of when it is that you're not going to eat. Now, remember, your thoughts are currently aligned with your actions. Therefore, if you're ever told, I want you to think about, any moms in the house, raise your hand. Like whenever you tell your kid or any child that any of you guys know, don't have that cookie, what is the first thing that they want to do? They want to grab that cookie. Us as adults are no different. When we're told to not do something, the first thing that our brain focuses on is that exact thing, even though it says no, because we're focusing our energy on it, okay? positive or negative, we're still focusing our energy on it, and that's where our energy is going to go. So if you know that you're like Christy, and whenever you're being told to, or whenever you set yourself with a guideline of do not eat for a certain amount of time period, and you know that it's going to do is make you focus on food and how much you eat it, then intermittent fasting is really not for you, because it's only going to make you hungry, and it's only going to make you want to eat more. And even if you stick to it, every day is going to feel like a battle. And if you know that every day feels like a battle for you, then you're not doing it right, because it needs to feel seemingly easy. Okay? Teresa, when you do it overnight while sleeping and wanting to eat until noon the next day, it is not too hard. However, sometimes it makes me crave to eat anything because I'm depriving myself of something. Absolutely. Like I said before, especially with women, what I find is that because we have this emotional attachment to food, what happens is that when we give ourselves a limitation, we're focusing our energy on it. And then even if we stick to that guideline, what happens is once we are allowing ourselves to eat, we might go overboard. So now if you know that by giving yourself a more strict guideline, it's going to make you go overboard, then guess what? Intermittent fasting is not for you, because every day is going to seem like a battle, and every day it's going to feel like you're taking a step back, because you might be exposing yourself to the consumption of food that you wouldn't really eat otherwise had you not limited yourself. Remember? So intermittent fasting does limit your food intake to some degree in the sense of timing. And now if you know that depriving yourself of food for a certain time period, or saying do not eat for a certain amount of period, if that creates some sort of disrupt in your brain, then guess what? Right now, intermittent fasting is not the right thing for you. Just like what Kobe said, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is a great approach, but it's really not for everybody. What I find, like I said, is that most women do struggle with it just because of the greater emotional attachment to food. Yes, we are emotional, whether we like it or not. It is what it is. All right. Teresa, I like a burger from time to time. Ate one over the weekend with half a bun, no condiments, had tomato, lettuce, and onion. Great. Awesome. Yeah. So let's wrap things up a little bit. Intermittent fasting. Yes, it's great. It's got a shit ton of benefits, right? It helps you feel more energized if you can keep up with it, because your body is spending less time digesting throughout the day. But the reality is that most people really cannot keep up with it, just because when you are limiting yourself to a certain time frame, or limiting yourself in general, then that puts your energy on what it is that you're not supposed to be doing. And regardless, because you're focusing your energy on that, what may happen is that you might find yourself even more hungry, even more likely to want to go for foods that you wouldn't even go for in the first place, that you know may sabotage you. So now, if you know that doing this will end up sabotaging your goals, then the answer is intermittent fasting is really not for you. And that's okay. There is a ton of approaches out there. Intermittent fasting just happens to be a hot buzz, so everybody's trying to do it. You don't need to be a whiz at intermittent fasting, and you don't need to keep resisting your body and trying to do intermittent fasting just because, let's say, your coworker on the next cubicle, or your best friend, or I don't know, your cousin was able to do that seemingly easy. So, Teresa, question, and then we're going to be talking about progressions. How often do you feel intermittent fasting should be done? Once a week. If I'm busy, it does not bother me at all. If I'm bored, that's when it's a problem. Teresa, so something that I always say, consistency is key. If you're doing something once a week, then you're obviously not being consistent with it. and you're just breaking a consistent routine just by trying to follow a hot trend. If you know that this is something that you can only easily follow once a week, then I would say don't even bother dealing with it. Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? So let's talk about progressions. If you're like, you know what, I actually don't know any of these answers that you just talked about. Good morning, Mike. I would always say start small, just like with training, just like with anything else in life. In order to do something right, if you want to try that approach, start small and work your way up. So, what the most basic form of intermittent fasting will tell you that you can't eat until noon, which is, by the way, BS, because it does not take your schedule into account. It does not take your personal life. But that is the problem with diets out there, is that they just give you a basic guideline and they expect millions of people to follow it. Okay? Nutrition, training does not work that way. You're a different person with a different preference, with a different relationship with food, with a different history with regards to everything that's, physiologically related, with a different preference and schedule. So knowing, trying to base your diet off of just a basic macro theory is completely irrelevant. And it's not going to get you very far. But if you want to get started, I would recommend start with at least 12 hours. Okay, so pick a time frame of 12 hours that you can be consistent with. It could be 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. The reality is, when it comes to intermittent fasting, you see benefits because you're limiting the time frame in which you're eating, which allows to a form of a caloric deficit, okay, which is why it helps you lose weight, okay, because you're limiting the time that you're eating. So remember, start small. I would recommend 12 hours. Now, if you know that 12 hours is hard for you, then I will tell you straight up, intermittent fasting is not the right thing for you, okay, because intermittent fasting, usually, like, when you're actually following that approach, you're limiting yourself to, the progressions are so, they're varied and they're all over the place, but the extreme intermittent fasters, would even go, 1 to 2 days a week without food whatsoever. Now, if you were to ask me, what is your opinion on this? I will never do that for myself because I know that I live an extremely active lifestyle. And if I deprive myself from food to that degree, then number one, there's no way I'm going to keep up with it. It's going to drive me nuts. Number two, it's going to help me it's going to make me sabotage myself whenever I see food. I will want to eat literally the entire house, which will take away all of my healthy habits that I practice daily. And number three, it will just drive me crazy and it will ruin my performance, as whatever role I play in life, whether it's a business owner, as an athlete, as a trainer, anything. You know what I mean? So you really have to take all these things into consideration. Start small. 12 hours would be ideal. Now, if you're like, okay, 12 hours, easy, whether you want it to be 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 9 a.m., 9 p.m., be consistent with that. Do that consistently for at least 7 days, and then, rev it up a little bit. Go to 13 hours. So the following week, go, okay, from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning. If you're like, okay, cool, then I would challenge you to go to 16 hours. Progress yourself up to 16 hours and be consistent with that. And that is how you find whether intermittent fasting is right for you. There's really no right or wrong here. It's just a matter of you figuring out whether it actually works for you. Now, I'm just telling you rules of thumbs. If you have an emotional attachment to food and if you feel like food is controlling you, then I'm going to tell you when you start out with 12 hours, it might be easy, but what you'll notice is that later on you will stall and you'll hit a bump. Okay, because you have to focus on building the right foundation as far as your habits go in order to feel like you have food freedom and full control of your food. Okay, this is something that I see a lot of times too. People start out hot with intermittent fasting, but they can't keep up with it. And the most important thing is that you have to be consistent with it. So I want you to ask yourself, in the case that you're curious to try intermittent fasting, it's always the 5-year approach. And this is how I call it. 5 years from now, will I be able to keep up with it? Ask yourself this simple question. And if the answer is no, then don't even bother getting started with it. If the answer is potentially, then by all means, go ahead and give it a shot, okay? Don't try to change yourself to an extreme to fit into a trend just because it's trendy. There's gonna be a hot new trend in January, to be honest. Trends always come and go, and that is why you focusing on your habits and you focusing on the foundation is literally the most important part, right? And after that, if you want, you can play around with all sorts of theories for however long you want, and you can see what works best for you. And that is why I always say this is a journey, but knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and really having a strong foundation is the key to your success. Intermittent fasting or not, it really is not for everybody. Most people who happen to be most successful with it are men, because they don't have the same cravings as women do. And because of that, they can be more consistent with it. But in order for you to figure out whether you should try it out, if you've been, kind of curious to try it, is asking yourself, do I see myself potentially being able to do this 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, then guess what? Don't even bother. We got some questions here. So let's answer those. You guys, anybody who is in the room, if you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and ask those now. Because as far as teaching goes for today, that's my 2 cents. When I'm working 4 nights in a row, I generally eat my last meal around midnight, and I don't eat until 3 to 5 p.m. Okay. When I'm working 4 nights in a row, I eat my last meal at around midnight, and I don't eat until 3 to 5 p.m. the next day, because sleep is more important to me than food. So you're unintentionally intermittent fasting because of your schedule, and that's fine. You don't have to put yourself in a box. People love to put themselves in a box because they love to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I get it. So you unintentionally intermittent fast. And it's fine. The reality is that there's no theory that's better than one another. You just have to be consistent with being good. That's it. Ooh, that's gold. What was gold? I want to hear that. You sound like in my light. I love it. Okay, so would that be absolutely nothing for 12 hours, no water either? No, water is totally fine, just like food ingestion. Intermittent fasting and fasting is different. Love the 5 years thoughts. It's true. That's how I make any decision in my life. And you should too. No food, Christy. Water must, yes. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Jesse. I'm doing 13 hours. By example, I can switch the hours on week. Example, 7 to 8 on weekday, but 9 to 10 on weekend. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Look, our body doesn't know 8 a.m., 10 a.m. Our body just knows time ranges, right? The time that we have right now, 6:28, that's a man-made concept. Just like your dog, your body does not really know whether it's 6:30 or 6:45. It just has its internal clock. Okay, so Alex, if you know that you're consistent with 13 hours and that's totally fine for you and you're sane while you're doing it and you're consistent with it, then most likely you'll be able to keep up with it for, another 5 years. And if that's the case, then keep it up. You know, there's no right or wrong. You just have to find the best thing that works best for you. And for everybody, it's going to be completely different. And that is really the take home point. If you're curious, then try it out. Start small and work yourself up from there. If you're hitting a bump, then it's not for you, and that's okay. When I am up during the day, I do not eat anything after 6 p.m. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. Do you recommend a type of schedule? No, because everybody's schedule is different. And if I was to tell you 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., but you're like Teresa and, you work night shifts, then that's going to be nonsense. You know what I mean? Great question, but that is why I say it is not for everybody, and you can't put yourself into a box. And the problem with most people who try to carry out intermittent fasting is that they put themselves into a box and they're like, okay, I'm not gonna eat until 12 p.m. And remember, it's not just about the time range, but within the time range that you're eating, it is what you're eating that matters most. So now, even if you give yourself a time range of eating for 8 hours and you eat shitty, then guess what? You're not going to see any benefits from intermittent fasting. I don't even care what you have to say. I don't mean time-wise. Kelly, did you listen back from the beginning? I would say start with 12 hours and work yourself up. But a certain amount of days per week. 7 days per week. Consistency is everything. Like if you can only do something 3 to 4 times a week intentionally, then you're not being consistent with it. Then what's the point of going out of your way to try to figure something out? That's a great question. Okay, Kelly, I would recommend you listen back from the beginning because there will be some really good take-home points for you. You guys, that's all I have for you for today. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you found this topic helpful, useful, if it helped to bring some clarity, then please do me a favor and share this with your friends and with your loved ones. All you gotta do is just click the share button, perhaps tag their name, or just comment in this video so that they'll be able to jump in on it and be able to join this community. I'm on a mission to help transform your life and the lives of millions of others through the same movement, nutrition, and lifestyle habits that have transformed mine. And I'm here every Monday through Friday talking to you about a different topic at 6 a.m. Pacific time in order to help you become your best self. So if you found this helpful, please show me some love and help to spread the love to your people too. This is Monday. Wishing you an amazing day and week ahead. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Happy Monday, you guys. Have a great week.